Most people assume British markets are Victorian inventions. Maybe Tudor at a push. They are wrong. Some of the markets still trading on British high streets every single week received their royal charters over 800 years ago. These are 7 of the oldest working markets in England, places where you can still buy your vegetables on a Wednesday morning, just as people did in the 1200s. And we begin with one that received its charter from a king so prolific in granting market rights that his name appears on documents from one end of England to the other. On the 15th of April, 1201, King John signed a charter for the town of Helston in Cornwall. The price was 40 marks of silver. For that sum, the town received the right to hold a weekly market in perpetuity. 825 years later, the charter still holds. Helston sits at the southern tip of England. The main street slopes downhill past Georgian shopfronts and old coaching inns. Open water channels called kennels still run along the gutters, a medieval drainage system that still works perfectly well. The town grew wealthy on tin. From 1305, Helston served as a stannery town, where tin was weighed and assayed and taxed before it could be sold. Miners came down from the hills. Merchants gathered on market day. Money flowed through the streets. The town prospered. Walk down Coinage Hall Street today, and you will find the Blue Anchor. It was originally a rest house for monks. By the 1500s, it had become a tavern. Today, it stands as one of the oldest historic brewpubs in the country, uniquely surviving to brew its own ale on site. A dark, heavy local beer called Spingo that regulars drink with a kind of reverent loyalty. If you visit on market day, you will find stalls set up along the sloping high street. Local produce, baked goods, Cornish cheeses. The buildings lean slightly with age. The water still runs in the channels beneath your feet. 40 marks of silver. That was the price of a weekly market. 8 centuries on, the town still trades. The Blue Anchor still pours. The charter still holds. And King John, it turns out, was busy that year. Because just 12 months later, he signed another charter, this time in Suffolk. Bury St Edmunds received its market charter from King John in 1202. But markets had already been trading there for centuries under the authority of the great Benedictine abbey that dominated the town. The charter simply made official what everyone already knew. This was a trading town. It always had been. The abbey shaped everything. It controlled the market, collected the tolls, and defended its commercial rights with extraordinary aggression. When the monks at Ely obtained a royal charter granting them permission to hold their own market just 17 miles to the northwest, the abbot of Bury did not write a letter of complaint. He sent 600 armed men on horseback to destroy the rival market by force. 600. On horseback, with weapons, over a market. That is how seriously the medieval world took trading rights. 12 years after the market charter was granted, something even more significant happened in Bury. In 1214, the barons of England gathered inside the Abbey Church and swore an oath to force King John to accept the Charter of Liberties. The Magna Carta followed the next year. The market predates even that. Today, the market fills the square beneath the Abbey Gate every Wednesday and Saturday. There are more than 70 stalls on a busy day. Fresh vegetables from Suffolk farms, locally reared meat, fish brought in from the coast, Portuguese pottery, Italian shirts, vintage clothing, and bright tubs of seasonal plants. The Abbey ruins look down on all of it, as they have since the beginning. 2 years after Bury received its charter, another town received its own. This one is tucked into the Yorkshire Dales, and its story begins not with monks, but with sheep. The name Skipton comes from 2 Anglo-Saxon words, seep, meaning sheep, and tun, meaning town. Sheep town. That is what it was, and in many ways, that is what it remains. In 1204, King John granted a charter allowing the Lord of Skipton Castle to hold a weekly market trading in sheep and woolen goods on the high street below the castle walls. What makes Skipton unusual is that the original charter arrangement still operates today. The current owner of Skipton Castle grants the rights to hold the market. Not the council, not the government, the castle. It is a feudal arrangement that has somehow survived into the 21st century without anyone finding a reason to change it. On market days, traders set up their stalls on the cobbled areas of the high street, known as the sets. Every stall is built at dawn and taken down at dusk. The castle sits at the top of the street, watching over the whole affair. During the English Civil War, Skipton Castle held out as the last royalist stronghold in northern England. The garrison endured a 3-year siege before surrendering with honour in December 1645. The town was battered, the walls were scarred. But through bombardment and starvation and the collapse of the royalist cause, the market continued. It did not stop for a civil war, it has not stopped since. The castle changed hands, the wool trade collapsed, the Industrial Revolution came and went. Canal boats replaced pack horses, railways replaced canal boats. Through all of it, the stalls kept going up on market morning. From the Dales we travel south, to a city whose market was born alongside one of the most recognisable buildings in England. In 1227, 7 years after construction began on Salisbury Cathedral, King Henry III granted a charter to the Bishop of Salisbury. The charter allowed a fair on the third Monday in October and a weekly market every Tuesday. Both the charter market and the annual fair are still held to this very day. By 1315, a second weekly market on Saturdays had been formally recognised. Nearly 800 years later, both days still trade. The marketplace in Salisbury is one of the finest in England. At its centre stands the Poultry Cross. This is a 15th century covered market cross, one of the last surviving examples in the country. It was built so that people selling chickens could keep their stock dry on wet days. 6 centuries of rain have not shifted it. That is the kind of practical, unsentimental thinking that kept these markets alive. On a Tuesday morning, roughly 70 stalls fill the square. Fresh seasonal produce, locally made crafts, bunches of cut flowers, and household goods are laid out on trestle tables. The cathedral spire rises behind the rooftops, the tallest in England. The Poultry Cross stands in the middle of it all. Vendors have sheltered beneath it in rain for 600 years. They will shelter beneath it again next week. We now cross into London, and here the story of a market becomes the story of a city. 1,000 years ago, a market took shape at the southern end of London Bridge in Southwark. By 1014, records show grain, fish, vegetables and cattle being sold on the riverbank. The first formal mention of a fruit and vegetable market came in 1276, when trading was moved to the high street. This is Borough Market, and it is almost certainly the oldest continually operating food market in the country. Its survival has never been easy. The City of London tried to shut it down more than once. Traders at Borough undercut prices offered by the city's own merchants, and the authorities responded by banning citizens from crossing London Bridge to buy goods in Southwark. The market survived anyway. It always does. In 1756, the residents of Southwark did something remarkable. They raised £6,000. That is the equivalent of well over £1 million today. They used it to purchase the site through an Act of Parliament and created a charitable trust to run the market on behalf of the community. That trust still operates. The trustees are volunteers who must live in the local area. 1,000 years of commerce, governed by neighbours. The present buildings date from the 1850s. Victorian iron and glass arch over narrow lanes packed with stalls. Over 100 traders sell bread, cheese, charcuterie, fresh fish, ground spices, warm pastries, and street food from every corner of the world. Borough Market was bombed during the Blitz. It reopened. In June 2017, a terrorist attack struck London Bridge and the streets around the market. 8 people were killed. 11 days later, The market reopened. Traders stood behind their stalls. Customers returned. Flowers were placed on the cobblestones. Some things simply do not stop. From the largest city in England to one of the smallest market towns. From the foot of London Bridge to the heart of the Cotswolds. Cirencester Market was recorded in the Domesday Book in 1086. That makes its documented existence older than any royal charter on this list. This was already a trading place before the Normans arrived. Before William the Conqueror redrew the map of England, people were buying and selling in this square. The town itself is far older still. This was Roman Corinium, the second largest settlement in Roman Britain. The street grid still follows Roman roads. Fragments of mosaic floors still turn up in back gardens when people dig too deep. The Church of St. John the Baptist, one of the largest parish churches in England, towers over the market square. Its south porch was built around 1500 as an office for the abbey, before later becoming the town hall. Cirencester grew rich on wool. By the 13th century, the Cotswolds were producing some of the finest fleece in Europe, and Cirencester was at the centre of the trade. The market square was the engine that drove it all. The wealth from that trade built the church, the houses, the town itself. Today, 2 weekly charter markets take place on Mondays and Fridays. Stalls sell fresh seasonal produce, cakes still warm from the oven, potted plants, homewares, and handmade crafts. Behind the stalls, the golden Cotswold stone of the church glows in the morning light. It is a quiet, civilized affair. No shouting, no jostling, just the steady hum of a community doing what it has done here for the better part of 1,000 years. If you stand in the marketplace on a Friday morning, you are standing in one of the oldest commercial spaces in Northern Europe, and you can still buy a very good loaf of bread. And finally, we come to a market so old that it predates the Norman conquest itself. In approximately 860 AD, a man named Wulfstan, the 6th abbot of St. Albans Abbey, founded a market to generate income for the monastery and to form the centre of a new town. This was not the 1200s. This was not even close. This was the Dark Ages. The Viking invasions had not yet peaked. Alfred the Great was still fighting for the survival of Wessex, and a monk in Hertfordshire decided his town needed somewhere to trade. In 1198, over 3 centuries later, King Richard I formally recognised the abbey's ancient market rights with a royal charter. But the market had been running since before the Normans invaded. The charter was a formality. The market was a fact. In 2024, St. Albans was awarded the title of Best Large Outdoor Market by the National Association of British Market Authorities. Not for its age, not for its history, for its quality. It also holds a strong claim to being one of the oldest continually operating open-air markets in England, still trading on its original historic footprint. Every Wednesday and Saturday, the stalls go up on St. Peter's Street. Sourdough, street food, cut flowers in bright metal buckets. The cathedral watches from the end of the street. A woman arranges tulips the way someone has arranged flowers on this spot for over 1,000 years. 12 centuries, 60 generations. The stalls go up on Wednesday morning, as they have since a Saxon abbot decided his town needed somewhere to trade. The cheese seller will be in the same spot this Saturday as she was last Saturday, and every Saturday before that, stretching back to a time before England had a name.